The New Jersey Devils entered the 2023-24 season with huge expectations after making the playoffs and advancing to the Eastern Conference semifinals last year. The expectation was that this young team was going to continue to grow and improve and become serious cup contenders in 24. Now, as the trade deadline approaches, the Devils find themselves 8 points clear of the final wildcard playoff spot and have lost 5 of their last 7 games during a critical stretch, and that losing streak ultimately resulted in head coach Lindy Ruff being fired. The question is, did Lindy Ruff deserve to be fired as head coach of the New Jersey Devils, and where would they go from here? And my answer is that probably he did deserve his firing as head coach of the Devils, but he is getting a disproportionate amount of the blame. And it's hard for me to disagree with Devils fans who feel like Ruff is not the right man for the job given how disinterested the team has looked at some points during this recent critical stretch of games. However, when you dig into the analytics behind their play this year and during that recent rough stretch, the Devils have actually been outplaying their opponents for the most part. In 5 of their last 7 games, the New Jersey Devils actually had a positive Corsi for percentage, meaning that they had the majority of the chances. And in 4 of their last 7 games, they had a higher expected goals for percentage, meaning that they should have been expected to outscore their opponents. And that's been true over the course of this season, as the Devils have a top 10 expected goals for percentage in the entire NHL. They're not a particularly undisciplined group, they're middle of the pack in terms of net penalties, and they don't take a lot of misconducts or bench minors. It's not like they're a team that particularly wilts and dies when they're behind. Their comeback rate is about middle of the pack when they're behind after the first or second period, and similarly, they don't surrender leads at a particularly high rate compared to the rest of the league. Although you can put a lot of the effort issues onto Lindy Ruff, the analytics suggest that the Devils are actually playing quite well. In fact, the issue lies between the pipes, where the New Jersey Devils have gotten horrible goaltending over the course of the year and in the past 7 games. And that's why I put a lot of the issues for the Devils' failure this season on their GM, Tom Fitzgerald, and goaltender coach Dave Rogalski. The fact of the matter is, when you have 3 goalies on your roster and none of them in over 15 games played can crack a 90 save percentage or a 3.0 GAA, that has to be looked at as the biggest reason for why a team is not succeeding. And Fitzgerald had all the indications in the world before the season that the goaltenders he had on his roster, Nikita Schmidt, Vitek Vanacek, and Nico Daws, just weren't starting caliber goaltenders. They hadn't proven that over a large enough sample size, even though Schmidt had played well in the Rangers series last playoffs. And I don't even fully disagree with the initial thought of having 3 goaltenders in your stable and hoping that one of them has a good year, because goaltending can be very, very finicky. But when all 3 of them just play so terribly below average, you as a GM have to pivot and make a move. And hell, we saw this happen in Edmonton, where Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell were both horrible at the beginning of the season, but the Oilers didn't just sit on their hands. Yes, they made the coaching change, but they also got Calvin Pickard, who kind of helped stabilize them as Skinner started to work his way out of that funk in December and January. Ultimately, Lindy Ruff did end up taking the blame, but in all honesty, I think he's getting an unfair portion of the blame. In addition to the goaltending issues, the Devils have also been an incredibly injured team all year. They've lost Dougie Hamilton. For stretches of time, they didn't have Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier. Personally, I would have liked to have seen Lindy Ruff finish out the year with an actual competent goaltender in net. The New Jersey Devils desperately need to add somebody, whether it's Markstrom, Charlie Lindgren, Peter Mrazek, whoever, and get somebody in the net who can actually stop a puck, and then I think it's fair to evaluate Lindy Ruff and the Devils. Yes, the effort levels and the composure from the Devils is a concern, and that has to be on Lindy Ruff, but at the same time, you can also attribute some of that to players being frustrated that they have goaltenders behind them who just can't stop a puck. I mean, this is something that Jack Hughes said about a month ago, and in my opinion, he was right, because not having a good goaltender is what is sinking the Devils right now.